It's now my pleasure to be joined by Kally Schiffler, who is running for the Idaho House of Representatives, District 26, Seat A. This seat is currently occupied by a Democrat, I should add. So, Kally, thanks for joining me. Can you tell us about yourself and how you arrived at this position where you're standing for the legislature?
Well, how I arrived at this position is probably unusual because I've never been a politician. I'm a mama and a grandma. And I've had my granddaughters who work at the Capitol as interns, one for Senator Glenita Zeiderveld and one for Representative Heather Scott. And they have worked in the last two sessions for them. And they've come home telling this grandma what's going on at the State House. And it was shocking. And they would ask me to pray for this or that was going on, and this, just the bills and just the things that were happening. And the Lord just laid it on my heart that I couldn't just pray. I had to take action. And so I come out of retirement and I'm running now for the office of the House of Representatives, District 26 CA. And I'm in the primaries against Mike Pohonka first. So I have to get through the primaries before I'll be in the generals against the Democrat, Ned Burns.
So, what's your background? Where did you
Oh,
grow
my
up?
dad.
What
Yeah.
do you do? Obviously you've raised some children here.
Yes. I'm a native Idahoan. We've had a business for many years in Jerome, a heating and air conditioning business. We sold our business and we still have a cattle company. So I know how to run a business basically. And I was looking at retirement, and my daughter is also running for the Senate. So our family has been just called by God to step up and do what we can for our country, starting with our state. And we need help. And I don't know, I haven't talked to anybody that doesn't agree with that. We have knocked on thousands of doors, getting our literature out. We call ourselves a freedom fighting family because as a family, we are trying to educate people to not just vote R. I have been a Republican my whole life, and I have voted R. And then I see as my granddaughters got into office that R is not what it used to be. And we have been infiltrated with people who say that they're Republican, who are not voting according to the Republican platform. And it breaks my heart to see where we're headed and what's happening for the future of our children. And well, I've been called Mama Bear and Grandma Grizzly. And I receive that gladly because I will fight like a mama bear fights for her cubs, for our children and for Idaho children. And I believe that mamas and daddies and grandmas and grandpas more than ever need to step up right now, make a difference and stand for this next generation because they are under attack. And we are losing our morals in this nation, and our kids are paying the price for it.
So I'm looking at your district, a map of it. Just through this process, I've been learning a lot about the different geographical layouts of our state. Uh, Now, I live in the Treasure Valley, so most of that is still Republican, although obviously the city of Boise is very Democrat, and I'm used to that. Uh, but how does District 26 get a Democrat representative? I mean, I know Blaine County has a reputation for being a little bit more left-leaning, but are there that many Democrats out there?
Actually, it's not because there's so many Democrats. It's because Republicans aren't getting out and voting.
Hmm.
And that's a real problem. There's only 30% of Republicans in our district that get out and vote. And so if we would get the Republicans out to vote, we would not be represented by Democrats.
Oh.
But the other side of that, we need to also be seeing if our Republicans are actually Republicans.
So what sets apart, a an actual Republican from, a not Republican?
Well, we've kind of gathered some of the bills that we see that are who's representing me right now, the two Dems and one Republican, and some of the bills that we see that they have voted on their voting record, which is public knowledge. You can see that our Republican that represents us right now is Jack Nelson, and he's voting the same as the Dems. So that's the first connection. That's the most important thing. But then also you can follow the money and you can follow the Sunshine Report on myself, who's never been in politics. You can follow the Sunshine Report on politicians that have been in there for years, and you can see who's supporting them financially. And I think that's a big statement also as to whose voice that they're representing.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that some of the bigger organizations, such as the Association of Commerce and Industry, the Farm Bureau, and others, they'll endorse Republicans or Democrats. So, what we might consider, conservative ideology is not the priority for those organizations. They're looking for people to advance their interests.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and we're educating people that like all the doors that we knock on, people are very appreciative that we have information that we can show them. They can go on a QR code and simply go to the Sunshine Report, because those are things that most people don't understand. And even to be able to plug into being able to look at how people are voting, those are public information. And so when we give them QR codes that they can just simply scan and go right to those locations and figure it out for themselves, I don't want them to take my word for it. I want them to look for themselves, do the research for themselves, and not do what I've done most of my life by just voting R, thinking that I was safe in that. Because sometimes it's actually worse than not, because we actually have people, and Democrats are doing what they say they're doing. I have no problem with that. They stand on their issues that they believe in, their values. We just don't have the same values. But if you're not voting according to the Republican Party, I just wish that they would just switch over to the party that fits them best.
So, as you've been, traveling your district, knocking on doors, what are you hearing from the voters in District 26? What are their priorities? What are their concerns? What do they want to see addressed?
A lot of them are concerned about the elections and them being tampered with.
Mm.
The dishonesty, just really worried and concerned about, should I even vote? Does it even matter because of the cheating? And everybody's concerned about that. I've heard quite a bit about that conversation, but also some people have just kind of surrendered and don't even want to vote because they don't think it makes a difference. And I that breaks my heart, because that silent surrender is just evil enablement. It's just letting things happen that shouldn't be happening. And we have to fight for our children. And in my heart, being an American, I don't believe you're a true American if you're not out voting. I think it's that important, like that right. And we should be taking advantage of that right, but it should be a duty.
Well, I recall, say what you will about Representative Nelson, but he won only after a recount, so it was very close. So that's proof that, every vote does count.
Yes, absolutely.
So, elections and just, getting involved, what's what's unique about your district? That's something I've been asking most everybody. I'm looking at it on the screen and it's very oddly shaped, because you've got Minidoka County kind of coming up, and you go around it like a letter N. Yeah, got Blaine going all the way up into the forest. You've got Jerome headed down on the north end of Twin Falls, the craters of the moon up there. It looks like it's a pretty diverse district.
It is.
What can you say about it?
Well, Jerome and Lincoln County are a more conservative minded people.
Mhm.
Obviously, Blaine County has a lot of people who are part-time residents and a lot of people who have come in. It's kind of like a mini California, I hear people say. I've had great reception actually in Blaine County, but I do think that our agricultural community are more conservative, and so that would be Lincoln and Jerome County. And we were redistricted into Blaine County, and that's when we started being represented by Democrats.
Hmm.
We have been in Jerome and Lincoln County before they redistrict us, always represented by Republicans.
Interesting.
So that's kind of interesting what's going on with those districts right now.
So with a lot of the agriculture, one of the you know discussions, I guess, one of the debates within the Republican Party is how much should government be involved. Um, there are many, especially more toward the North Idaho side, who would say government needs to be restricted to just protecting the life, liberty, and property of the people. And then on the other side, I would say folks in Eastern Idaho, especially, government's been intertwined with business, with agriculture, you know, with your life, with your jobs. So, what are your thoughts on that, and how do we move forward there? How do we keep the government from getting too big, but not just let everything fall apart?
Yeah, I think we need to have common sense, and I don't know how common sense is anymore. Um, I just believe we need less government overall, and that's my heart on in every faucet. We have been there's just overreach in everything that you look at. And if we could cut government back, if we could cut spending back, if we could cut the federal dollars that we're dependent on, and we could make Idaho sovereign again, we could handle our state so much better without all the things that are just excess. And I just believe we need to cut back a lot of excess. Now there's needs that need to be taken care of, and we don't ignore those things. We don't say that there's not needs. There actually is a lot of needs, but we have overspent in Idaho. We have accepted way too much federal dollars, in my opinion. And so I would see and I would vote against a lot of things is you just line by line itemize things and see what's important and what's not important. And I'm sure everybody has different opinions on that. And just coming to the table as being a business owner, I knew how to tighten my belt when I needed to, and I just believe government needs to, and I believe that they don't need to have such a strong voice, federal government over Idaho. So I would want to cut federal funds back.
So if you were elected, would you want to serve on JFAC, where you would have a direct hand in, working on those budgets and trying to cut back those expenditures?
Running the office in the business, that would probably be one of those things that I would have a little bit more knowledge at.
Mhm.
But I, I want to stand for our children, our dollars. I don't want them to be taking on the debt either. But my heart and why the Lord called me to run for office is more moral issues, because America needs to pass on some moral thinking, ideologies. I think we need to get God back in the government mountain. And a lot of people think you need to keep that separate. I think it's why we're in the hole we're in morally.
So what does that look like? What is, standing up for children, bringing God back into society? What does that look like at the legislative level?
At the legislative level, like the H314A bill that first was introduced to get porn out of the libraries, the House and the Senate both passed that. And then our governor killed it. And
Mhm.
I don't understand that. And then they brought in a bill that was actually worse because it left it in the parents' hands, that they would have to fight in the judicial system, spending their time and dollars to take a book off the shelf that they didn't agree with, while our tax dollars were putting maybe 10 more on the shelf at the same time. So it was just, to me, it was not common sense. It was ridiculous in my thinking. And those are the kind of things that I would want to look at bills very closely, because one piece might look really good. And then the next thing that you read is like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. And so those are the kind of things I would be scrutinizing every bill to make sure that there's not things in there that, even though one thing is a good thing, then there's something really bad. And so there it's a moral thing. It's not a political thing, in those kind of bills, and restricting like, God, there's the ban the trans surgeries and hormones to minors. There's so many things that are hurting our children and passing on just things that should not even be an issue in society if we wasn't just sitting back and allowing it to happen. So I would stand on those issues very strongly for the next generation. I just believe our families are under attack. Marriage has been under attack, since we say that it's not just a man and a woman in marriage. So there's just so many things that we look at that go, how did we get here? Oh, that's how we got here.
Yeah.
We have passed bills that we shouldn't be passing because they're not political issues, they're moral issues.
Well, oftentimes what I've seen is that, you know, issues are promoted or ideologies are promoted in school and in entertainment and news media, but they're not political, or they don't call them political. They just say this is, this is what it is. But then you come in with if you come in with something from a Christian perspective, well, you can't do that. That's religion. If you come in with something from a conservative perspective, well, you can't do that. That's political. But everything that the left pushes is, oh, that's not political. That's not religious. That's just common sense or whatever they call it.
Uh-huh. Everybody's rights, basically. But a lot of times everybody's rights and the people who are screaming the loudest are the ones that are being heard, and everybody else is just kind of going along with it because they're not up for the fight, I guess. I'm not real sure because everybody I'm talking to when I go knocking on doors are very frustrated with what's happening in our school systems and our school education, and they don't like it. And so I think that if people had the opportunity to have more of a voice, that it would be a really good thing from the people that I'm talking to. And then to get them out to actually voice their voice is a whole nother story, because a lot of times what people say and what they do are two different things. But they do agree with me that we have a problem in our school systems. People have pulled their children out of school. I just talked at a homeschool organization yesterday, and I think that our school choice is a great thing, and I really do think that the money should follow the student. Those are other things that I just am hoping to really help our families to be able to stand and take care of their children better, and to keep their children out of a woke system. If the system is going to stay woke, they should have choices to be able to not participate in it, and still their tax dollars that they pay for education could follow that student and educate that student in other ways. And I think that that's just like, oh, we have competition in every other area. If we had competition in school, maybe our schools would step up and do a little bit better job.
That has been a contentious debate in the Idaho legislature for several years now. Last year, an education savings account was defeated on the Senate floor. This year, a tax credit was defeated in the committee. So, I guess a two-part question then: which of those money following the student ideas do you think would be best? And second, how do you get it through the legislature when there's so much resistance and so much opposition from the public school system?
Yeah, well, I'm I don't know honestly how to fix the thing with one person's voice. Like, we have to have enough people standing up and saying that the money should follow the parent. Now, what that looks like, if it's a voucher or if it's a tax credit, I really don't think it matters, because we need to trust our parents to educate our children at the way that they're going to educate them. There's a lot of money that goes into homeschooling your child. I homeschooled my children when they were younger, and I have some grandchildren being homeschooled right now, and I know what that looks like, So it's not like it doesn't take money to educate those children. So if they're worried about vouchers being spent on other means, there's a lot of money that goes into educating your child. So that's not a worry to me. I think either way is just fine.
Yeah. On the other hand, the money following the student that the legislature does seem to like and the governor likes is the launch grant, which is $8,000 for high school graduates to take to job training or trade school. That one's also caused some debate. What do you think of that?
I'm not for it. I don't believe that the launch program has been fair. I do not like the way that it's allocated.
Mhm.
What they're saying is important for them to throw that money into. Not every student is getting it, and they have chosen, I believe, a lot of corporations that are putting money up to support our candidates and to support our incumbents has been, it just doesn't look right when those corporations that are the big dollars that are funding different things are the ones who are needing all these workers. And why is it not fair for everybody? That would be my question. And how's it being allocated? So those are the things, when I've looked at it, I don't agree with.
I think that a lot of big corporations and their associations made a financial decision. They looked at the numbers and found it was a better return on investment to donate to politicians, to PACs, and pay some lobbyists, get this passed, and then have the taxpayers subsidize their workforce training. It really seems like they're what I would call the old guard Republicans. They're still in the mindset that anything for business is good because business is free enterprise. The free market capitalism, whereas government is bad because we don't want a planned economy, socialism. Whereas I think a new generation of Republicans, in general, obviously, are looking a little bit more skeptically at the business community. And as I said, IACI has gone out and endorsed some Democrats, so obviously it's not really conservative principles they're supporting. It's what's good for business. How do we move forward and maybe remove some of that influence that they have, while at the same time, obviously, you don't want to crash the economy, chase businesses out of the state, and all that stuff.
Sure. But I think that large corporations like that already have the funds. I don't know why they're needing us to support the workforce for their businesses. I think we need to be focused on small business. It's the American people, the small businesses that has built America so strong. And we need to get back to that instead of small businesses being bought out by large corporations constantly. And we don't have the small businesses like we used to. And we need to be helping those small businesses more than we need to help fund the workforce for corporations.
So let's see what else. What other issues out there? Abortion, obviously, contentious issue. Dobbs returned the issue to the states, and the state of Idaho banned it, although there's still a few exceptions. And then I've recently read that some groups are going to try and put it on the ballot for 2026, which is a statewide election year. So it's the debate's just going to get even more contentious. What do you think about our current laws? Do they need to be more strict, loosened up? And how do we, as a movement, as conservatives, as Christians, prepare for the debate that's going to be here soon?
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be a harder debate than it's already been, honestly. I just believe, and I can't call myself a Christian and say that abortion is okay. And so it's not even like I have to figure out the debate. I already know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is against God to murder, to kill an innocent baby, to kill a child. And so I stand absolutely on abolishing abortion with absolutely no exceptions. I don't believe that even my heart breaks for people who have had awful things done to them, like rape, and a child is conceived out of that. But that is not the child's fault. That is still a human being created by God, knit in the womb by Him. And so there's no bend in me, like that's a mountain I will die on. I will want abortion absolutely abolished, and I cannot stand on any other platform than that before God, my maker.
Well, it's no questions there.
Yeah.
Let's see, guns, I see on your website, shall not be infringed. So, I can probably guess where you stand there, but obviously we have fairly good gun laws here in Idaho, constitutional carry. Would you like to see that expanded further? Do you support any form of red flag laws, background checks, any of those things?
I just stand on we have the right to bear arms, and I don't think anything should infringe on that right, and there should be no infringement whatsoever. So I would not stand behind anything that's going to take even a little bit of our right away.
And one thing that knits all these issues together is, the conflict between state government and federal government. Just as we record this, it was just a few days ago that our Attorney General and Speaker of the House were in Washington, D.C. to watch the arguments for the federal government's lawsuit against Idaho for our abortion law. And we see the same thing with gun laws as well. They try to implement these things at the federal level with ATF and such. Where do you see the balance between federal law and state law? Do you go all the way on one side where the federal government is the boss and we have to just do what they say, all the way on the other side where the state government is ultimately sovereign and we can nullify federal laws if we believe they're unconstitutional, or somewhere in the middle?
I'm absolutely, Idaho is sovereign in every area.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't believe that the federal government should tell Idaho what it needs to be doing. I think Idahoans, we the people, should have that voice, and I think our representatives should represent us accordingly.
Um, yeah, an issue where that actually is coming up is the proposed Lava Ridge wind farm.
Mhm.
I don't remember if that's in your district but it's in that region, definitely. That's where you have a federal bureaucracy. The Bureau of Land Management is going to make the ultimate decision about whether or not this thing is built. And apparently, it's not even going to benefit Idaho. Even if it were built, it would send electricity down to California. So it's, I mean, it definitely seems weird to me that you have a federal bureaucracy, not even elected. It's not Congress even. It's just an agency that can make decisions for the people of Idaho, and we don't actually get a say. Um,
Yeah.
how how can the legislature fight back against that? And on all the issues of state sovereignty, what can you actually do materially to stand up to the federal government?
Mm. Yeah, I know that there are so many people against Lava Ridge, and they have been standing up and they have been having a voice, and they're actually in Boise right now. I'm not sure what time today. I think it was at noon, but they're at the Capitol having a voice today even. So they are pushing forward, and I am so proud of the Idahoans that are standing up against the federal government and getting their voice heard. And I pray that the legislators who are in there are listening and doing according to what the people are already in the battle for, because people are up for this fight. We will not lay down and just let this take place for Idahoans. And it affects my district in a huge way. And I have not talked to one single person who is for Lava Ridge, not one, except I was at a meeting about a month and a half ago in the Jerome Library with Ned Burns and Ron Taylor and Jack Nelson. And they all said in the meeting that I was a part of that, well, the dams are going to be breached within 20 years anyway. So we're going to need new energy. So how do you propose we have energy if we don't allow these windmills to start being put in? And what you just said was that doesn't even benefit Idaho. So what are they speaking about? And why would they assume that Idahoans are going to lay down and let our dams be breached? It is what has created life in our desert. It is what gives us clean hydro energy. 60% of our energy comes from that area. Why would they breach that? Why would they want us to be dependent on federal to get our power, to get electricity? It's absurdity, and Idahoans understand it to be so. And so we are in for that fight. So I think that that's going to be a rude awakening to the federal people, that they're not going to just have it easy to make that happen. I don't think they're going to stop, though. They've been allowed by our legislature to begin the process. It should have never began. Not one part of it's good for Idaho.
That's definitely a complex issue, and if people don't stand up, then yeah, the federal government's just gonna run roughshod over us, and
Yep.
it's as if they see, they look at Idaho and instead of seeing a sovereign state, they see raw material for the wealthy, population dense people down in California.
Yeah. Yeah. And to top that off too, those windmills could actually be sold later on down the line after they're established. And who's looking to buy those? I mean, there's so much, if you really start looking into it, that people aren't aware of. And it's really a sad situation that our federal government thinks that they would have the right to overstep the people of Idaho.
So you are in an interesting district. It's really one of the few districts, maybe only two or three in the entire state, where you have split representation between Republicans and Democrats. And you're obviously your general election opponent would be a Democrat. So that's the easy part. You know, in a Republican primary, everybody's going to agree that the Democrats are bad. But how do you set yourself stand apart in the primary as, okay, not only am I the best choice on the issues, but also I have the best chance of beating the Democrat?
Yeah. So the Republican that is running against me in the primaries is Mike Pohanka.
Mhm.
And the thing that I would say about that situation in the primaries is to look at voting records of who he ran with 2 years ago, because I actually supported him. I voted for Mike, I voted for Jack Nelson and I voted for Lori Likely and I voted R. And that's why I'm educating people because when I see after Jack Nelson got in there, what he said and what he is voting is two separate things. And Lori Likely and Jack Nelson and Mike Bohanka are on the same team, going to all the same meetings, promoting themselves together, being supported by the same corporations. And if you look at that picture, you're going to understand what that looks like. And you're going to see that they're not conservative. And we want conservative representation. And I'm saying we because I've knocked on so many doors and I've talked to people face to face. So it's not just me saying that. It's because I'm understanding what the people are saying. And they do want conservative representation in Idaho. They want a conservative voice for Idaho. They want somebody who will stand up and have moral issues addressed. They want somebody who will stand up and say that the spending, the excess taxes is they're done with it. They don't want it any longer. They want to stand and say no more. So I believe I have a really good chance because of the people I've talked to and the response that I've gotten. I think a lot of people have the heart that I have for Idaho.
That kind of leads into another question. What do you think of the relationship between the Idaho Republican Party, the voters, and the legislators? Uh, because obviously it's gotten pretty contentious the last couple of years with Dorothy Moon as chair. Um, personally, I think she's done a lot of great things and some good work. But she's become a lightning rod because the former leadership they don't like it and they want to be in charge again. And so you see people taking sides. Uh, Lori Likely, who's running for the Senate seat there, she wrote an op-ed going after Dorothy Moon. I wrote a response on my website. Uh, but the claim on one side is that the grassroots support the party and the legislators need to fall in line with that. But then they claim that no, the voters actually support us. That's why we're in office. And the party's been hijacked by radical extremists. So where do you stand on that? And how do we repair this relationship, I'd say, between Republican legislators and the Republican PCs that make up the party?
Wow, that is a big issue, and I think it's a really sad thing that the Republican Party is so broken. Um, I I think it needs to be fixed. I don't think it's too late to fix it, and I believe Dorothy Moon has the right heart to get it fixed. And to say that the old guard is the grassroots, I don't really agree with that. I think the people are the grassroots.
Mhm.
So I would flip that. I think they've stolen that word, and it doesn't quite fit them. I think the grassroots are we the people. And I don't know. It's really sad because it's not like the Dems are opposition. It's actually the Republicans hurting the Republicans. So it's a crazy battle that I would not have expected. And until my eyes were open to how sad that the Republican Party is looking, I definitely think that Dorothy Moon has the right heart to get it fixed. And I believe that Republicans who are not voting according to the Republican platform, and I've heard why they have all their exceptions. I've talked to them myself and asked questions because I want to know what their heart is, because I wanted to know when I'm going into this, do I even want to run on the Republican ticket? Maybe I just want to be independent. My daughter is running independent against Lori Likely. And to be on the Republican ticket means that I still have hope for the Republican Party. And I believe Dorothy Moon is going to get something done. And I believe things need to change and we need to stop hurting each other and come together. And I think we need to stand on the Republican platform to do that. And if you don't agree with it, I think you need to exit to the other party.
Or be independent, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Maybe we need a whole new party and call it the Conservative Party. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe that's radical.
Well, we have the Constitution Party, but the problem with third parties and even independent runs is that they almost never work. So
Mhm.
usually, I think your path is the prudent one, because if the Republican Party as an organization has name recognition, it has voter lists, um, and it has a structure with the PCs and the committees. So getting in there and advocating for your views there seems to be a more efficient use of time than trying to go outside the system.
Sure, I get that. But I also talk to a lot of people face to face that say they've changed to independent. There's a lot of
Mm.
independents in my district, especially up in Blaine County. And I think that people are very tired of the fight in the Republican Party and being misrepresented and being represented by people who say they're Republican and they're not. They're
Yeah,
not voting accordingly. So I think a lot of people are getting their eyes open. And I think education will help maybe change that picture. And maybe there will be a difference in parties someday.
maybe it's we'll see if the country lasts long enough for that.
Stretch. It's a big stretch.
It's funny. I just used this illustration at a recent Lincoln Day speech that the Republican Party was founded in the, lead up to a division in our country, obviously with the Civil War, and now
Yeah,
I think our country's becoming just as polarized as it was then. I'm not necessarily saying we're going to see civil war, but the feelings are definitely there of
yes,
division.
yes,
So
they really are.
I don't know what comes of that. Uh, I appreciate your time talking to me today. Is there any issues that you want to bring up that I haven't asked? Other than that, do you have any closing thoughts?
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of issues that we don't have time to discuss. There's so many things that I say no to, and we've talked about a few of them with just Lava Ridge and reaching our dams, but also our open borders.
Hmm.
I just think that we need to be thinking about our own safety here. And I've been out of country, and so I know what it looks like when you are overrun. I really feel like Americans are at a point where we are losing our safeties and we need to enforce our Constitution and protect our borders. We're not a country without borders. One of our founding fathers or one of our presidents had said that, and it's like, are we a country if we just open our borders and we allow there to be um, ISIS, jihad factions right here in our states, and the government is very aware of it. And I've been in Indonesia many times and I have seen what ISIS has done. And especially when our towers went down, America was so worried about America that we were not protecting the world from harm. And ISIS went in and just murdered Christians. And we have been a part of helping orphans that have been victims to that. And I really feel like we need to open our eyes and see what can happen if we don't protect our borders.
Yeah, that is a big issue actually, and I meant to bring it up, especially in eastern Idaho with so much agriculture. That was the debate I heard from eastern Idaho legislators this year that these ideas of enforcing the border and reducing immigration and deporting illegals, we can't do that because it's, agriculture relies on foreign labor, and so we need a system from the federal government that brings in more foreign workers, and we can't do anything about the illegal aliens who are here because if we did, it would crash the economy and we wouldn't be able to eat. So, how do you enforce the border and enforce our laws while at the same time not doing all those bad things they say will happen?
Well, the thing is, our borders have been open to come legally and work on visas, and we have had a workforce that way. Now we actually have illegals coming in that are working for a dime less than the ones who came in legally, and then the ones who are here legally are losing their jobs. So I again, I don't support it for the workforce. I think that is just corruption in the get-go, and I believe that we need to have people coming in legally. There's a system already in place. Enforce it. It's simple. It's not like we're remaking a wheel. We already have things in place that have worked over our entire history. Why have we changed it now?
All right. Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. I just want America to wake up and step up to the plate and get out and vote and not just silently surrender, make a difference, and do whatever God has called you to do to make a difference, whether you run for office, whether you run for PC, city council, anything that you can apply yourself to do a civic duty for your country. Now is the time to step up and do it. So I call Americans to action, basically, Idahoans to action. We need to step up and we need to do what we need to do And our founding fathers set it up to where we would have legislative representatives that would step up and do their civil duty, and then they would step out and let the next person do their civil duty. And if we got back to that and stopped having career politicians, we would have such a healthier legislative representative for our people. And so I'm just asking the people and calling the people out to step up and do your duty as Americans and vote. It's the very least thing that we can do as a duty.
Kally Schiffler, candidate for House of Representatives, District 26, Seat A. Thank you.
Thank you.